Hi everyone, this is Rinki. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of INCI with Rinki. And this is a podcast where we dig past the glossy marketing stories and dig into the real stories that shape beauty, sustainability, and innovation. I am Rinki. If you don't know me, I am a beauty industry truth teller, an ingredient nerd, a STEM translator, and your guide in decoding the labels from the lies. If you like unfiltered conversation, I am sure you're going to love today's episode. So hit that like button, tap that subscribe, and share with someone who are ready to shop smarter. And today, in this episode of Beyond the Boardroom series, I am talking to someone who didn't just enter the beauty industry. He barged in with a plan to flip the script. Sira Naidu, co-founder of Disruptor London. He started his brand back in January 2021 after years of frustration with the industry that often puts profit over people and planet. Disruptor London's mission to create a personal care brand genuinely good for both and solid format of shampoos, conditioners, and shaving products that can replace some of the most wasteful offerings in our industry. But they are doing great and speaking large volumes. What do I say about it? It's bold, it's uncompromising. And Sira is here to tell you the bigger story. And let me tell you, it's not easy, but they're doing great. Sira, welcome to the show. Tell
Oh,
me all
Rinki, thank
about.
you. Rinki, thank you so much for having me. And I must say, I love your name, Inky with Rinki. It's got such a nice ring to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's all of a coincidence to have a name. And I like to explain when we hear the INCI, what does it mean? When we look at every single product that we use, there is an ingredient label around it. But most of us, we do not understand what it means, what of this ingredient do, and what does it means, what's beyond those chemistry names. And that's why I thought, let me start a channel talking about demystify the skincare and the world of beauty and personal care, hence the name. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining me for today's discussion. So let's start from very beginning. Can you take us back the moment Disruptor London was born? What was the problem that you were trying to solve and what actually guided you to the journey that you're doing today?
So, Rinki, I've been, when it comes to Inkies, I've been obsessed with Inky lists and just looking at ingredients on the back of packaging from my first moment of stepping on a beauty counter over 20 years ago in South Africa. And I have a chemistry background, and I was always very curious. And, if we cannot understand what's on the ingredient label, then why are we putting these products on our skin? Okay,
Absolutely.
so I think, we've come so far as a society where we're so aware of our consumption when it comes to food. And if we don't recognize something, then we don't consume it. So similarly, we felt that with beauty products, this is food for your skin, food for your hair. We should have a similar approach. So Disruptor London was born out of, I'd say, equal parts of frustration and hope. Frustration at seeing an industry that was just driven by excess, so much of greenwashing and so much of waste. I've worked over 20 years with some of the largest beauty brands out there and then some indie brands as well. And something that really stood out for me was how little consideration there was for what happens to packaging and the
Yes.
end of life when it comes to beauty packaging. Now, we all know the stats, like, how many million units of plastic packaging is being created every year for the beauty industry, but less than 10% of that is being recycled. So what happens to all of this excess and the waste? I've seen firsthand. It's clogging our waterways, it's in our rivers, it's in landfills in developing countries. Um, and that just doesn't feel fair, right? So for us, there's no shortage of beauty or personal care brands out there. What there is a shortage of brands doing things more responsibly. And that's where we come in. We were born out of a mission to do things differently and change the narrative around personal care so it can be more responsible. and better for people and better for the planet.
Perfect. Well, that is true, and I can like 100% resonate to what you're saying. I myself have worked for one of the largest, few of the largest conglomerates actually, but I'm also fortunate to work for few brands who actually took this mission also seriously and like doing responsible packaging, doing clean beauty. So I have seen it very close hands on when there is a brand driven by the mission. You definitely can do it. I think like it's not the solution do not exist today. I think the lack of intent is not widespread. Like there is a lack of intent that is not becoming a core to every possible brand across the beauty and personal care industry, whether it's a sampling because that uses highest amount of monodose and like single use plastics primarily,
Hmm.
and it is those area that we need to be mindful. I think brands are changing, but there is a mountain of way before we can like solve the issue. So I really, really like what Disruptor London is doing, and thank you for telling me your story, because sustainability is often seen as a buzzword, and it is like for the past 5 years, every single brand in their brand page somewhere the word sustainability and clean is incorporated. But at Disruptor London, how do you define it in a way that feels real, measurable, and honest?
So, sustainability for us is not a box ticking exercise. And I think with a lot of heritage brands that didn't really consider sustainability and now they need to, they see it as that. And that's okay because you cannot re reverse engineer things, okay? But for startups, for brands that are being born today or in the last, 5, 10 years, we cannot ignore the climate crisis. So
Yes.
for us, it's something that needed to be baked into our daily decisions, our DNA, and it needs to also be something that's measurable. Sustainability is also not regulated or defined. So for us, we needed to start off by a blank canvas and really defining what that meant for us as a brand. So we call it our consideration framework, the things that we don't want as part of our brand, the things that we believe very strongly as individuals and as human beings first. Um, and we build from there. So it's important when we're speaking to our community, when we're speaking to our audience, to explain to them what sustainability means to us, because it's not something that you can take for granted and expect everyone to be singing from the same hymn sheet. And I think for how we've done it, it's really looking at how can we be more measurable from cradle to cradle when we're looking at third parties and also our zero waste goals when it comes to our packaging.
Yeah.
The end of life there, it was a big consideration. Do we go naked without any packaging to circumvent the whole recycling
Yeah.
infrastructure that's failing us? But what's been great is being audited by third party platforms like Good on You
Yeah.
that launched their beauty platform last year, sorry. They've been really effective and disruptive in the fashion industry by ranking brands. And when they launched their platform into beauty last year, they interviewed us together with over 250 other brands globally. And it's great that to see that we were the top scoring brand with them. And a
Lovely.
lot of the credentials and criteria that they look for is not something that we would tell them. It's what's publicly available. So they do their own research. They audit brands based on the different criteria, whether it comes to ethics, environment, people, animals, etc. And they share that on their platforms because it helps consumers make more informed decisions. So I'd say for us, sustainability is not a trend or any kind of tick-boxing exercise. It's a living value, and it's something that will evolve as our brand grows and evolves. And, for us, it's about making progress. There's this saying about don't let perfection be the enemy of good. And that's something that
100%.
we stand by. And, we want to do better than the previous year or, other brands. Uh, but we're not over absorbed or consumed with perfection. So we just need to make progress.
Perfect. I personally believe, and I think it took me a long time in my personal career because I was like growing up, I always was very perfectionist. Then once you enter into the corporate world and you mix with so many people across culture, diversity, even different culture, like different continents, I have learned in life, progress matters over perfection. Yes, you need
Yes.
to be, like, you need to be very perfect. But like, if you constantly try to make one thing so perfect and you are like so fearful to like launch it, you will like miss like the hit mark, and like the time or the moment would be gone. So do your best effort, give it delivery, and move on. So progress matters over perfection, and you can always go back and do better. I think like being better doesn't stop. Again, like I have really good experience in learning in my career in terms of like how sustainability can be taken to a different level. From packaging, I have been like really came across to some industry leaders who have taught me those. And a lot of people don't understand. It's like when you say recycle, like recyclable packaging, your packaging might be considered having multi materials, which means it needs sorting before it can be recycled. So like not the whole thing goes in like a one bin. It
Yeah.
might be like separated out, especially for things like droppers and like sleeves, for example. A lot of people doesn't leave like those fabric conditioner bottle. They do have a line say take out the sleeve, but when we did experiments, it's like people doesn't like pay attention always. So and they do chuck the whole thing in recycle bin because they do want to do the best for planet, but they have missed out a fact. And now that in the recycle bin with the sleeve on actually cannot be recycled because somebody needs to take off the sleeve first. And like those are the nuances that actually kills the whole point of sustainability. I think like as an industry, our packaging need to be more clear and more simpler for our consumer to use, so there is no scope of mistake. And I like the way you have designed your packaging, especially with this tiny little bag. So tell us a little bit more of like how what kind of steps you have taken incorporating, because shampoo bars and conditioners, they're not first in the industry, they actually came few years ago. But how is your products quite different than the others?
Yeah, so solid formats have existed for a long time, and thanks to pioneers, that have done that. But there's been a lot of innovation in terms of new ingredients and more innovative actives that you can use.
Yeah.
So it all started when we decided we wanted to start a beauty brand, and we had this consideration framework, and then looked at, you know, going down several rabbit holes when it came to understanding the whole recycling infrastructure and why it's failing.
Okay.
And while we are innovating far ahead in terms of packaging, our recycling infrastructure is not moving at the same pace.
Yes.
So innovative in packaging like biomaterials are quite infectious to existing infrastructure. So it doesn't really work. And as a result of that, there's a lot of these products that packaging that ends up in a landfill. So for us, how do we circumvent this? Because that's beyond our influence and control. We decided to start off with the solid formats because it just comes in FSC cardboard,
Yeah.
and those are compostable. So the product itself, how is that unique? Is we wanted to develop products that are also multi-use because
Okay.
Apart from the plastic crisis, one of the other contributing factors to the climate crisis is overconsumption.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to consume more responsibly and we need to consume less. So, how do we consume less? As innovators, as product or brand owners, we need to think differently. And we think with more of a circular designing lens. And what does that mean? We need to think about how can our formulas work harder for us and doing it in a green way. So it's still being sustainable. It's still ticking all of those boxes. That's balancing a sustainable product and an efficacious product, but doing it in a way that's still luxurious, that's effective, and it's still a nice experience. So we worked probably close to 2.5 years on developing
Awesome.
our formulas in-house, where we wanted products that lathered nicely, like the equivalent of a liquid shampoo, because even though lather isn't that important for cleansing of your hair, as a scientist and, chemist, people
You're
know
so
that
right.
consumers, um, they like that kind of superficial feeling
Feeling. It is
through
absolutely in the
bubbles
feeling.
and foam. And we are developing products for consumers and the end users. We're not
Yeah.
trying to tell them what they shouldn't experience. We want to develop products for consumers. So the lather was something that was really important. So we worked with different surfactants to create this luxurious lather that sets our bars aside from most of the competition out there. And then we wanted our hair to feel quite comfortable and natural without that draggy feeling. So to do this, the insights that I'd say informed why we did this is before we started developing these products, we did lots of focus groups and asked customers and people that we knew what were the pain points in using a more sustainable product, namely a solid format. And the lack of lather, the draggy feeling, my hair doesn't really feel comfortable afterwards, or, I need a little bit more of this, or I need a little bit more of that, or it doesn't last very long. So those are things that we really considered, and then we built our formula based on those pain points, and of obviously looking at other criteria as well. So, for us, that main USP would be developing a multi-use product that combines the functions of shampoo, conditioner, cleanse, and shave, all in one versatile product for all genders. And then we have a range of 4 different products that all address different skin and scalp concerns, because scalp health is, really important and it's foundationary for good hair health.
Absolutely.
So we developed these products that's really going to look after your scalp, going to cleanse it effectively without stripping it of natural oils. Your scalp feels comfortable, and then it's also compatible with your skin. It's a pH balance formula, rich with active ingredients. It's great for skin and hair health.
Yeah, 100%. Because, like, generally, like an average mass market product, and I personally use shampoos in mass market as well as prestige shampoos, but like shampoos are shampoos, basic, like as a function. The primary function by the definition of cosmetics is it need to clean the hair. And me personally, not as a scientist, because as a scientist I have developed shampoo bars, but as a consumer myself, I always feel like that is like in the back end of my mind, it's like it's not cleansing enough. It's
Yep.
not cleansing enough. And like me telling, like I have learned the science and I know, but like if the foam, like the overall like lather of like it's not there, it somehow still feel like, oh, my hair, especially because I have like long black Indian hair, it's like I felt like my scalp probably is still left greasy and I probably have to
Hmm.
shampoo the next day. And I know like we use foam boosters in the formula or a secondary surfactant. to make up the lather, and that has nothing to do with the cleanser. So I am thinking, like, if me knowing the science and me being knowledgeable of the cosmetic science would feel, what would an average consumer would feel like? Because that's their I would say meter of cleansing performance. It's like, if it is not lathering enough, it's not cleansing enough.
Yeah.
And like, this is not something like we cannot change the consumer. We just have to
No.
adapt them
Yeah.
to their
And
needs.
consumers' shopping behaviors informed more by features and benefits of the product, right? So you want those features of the lovely scent, the lovely lather, how your hair feels afterwards, and then the benefits of, like, actives that like keep your hair more hydrated, etc. But we're not there to tell consumers, no, this is wrong. You don't need to feel this way. No, we are there to serve our customers, and we're doing it in a way where it's reimagining outdated formulas or reimagining something that was created maybe 20 years ago. And how do we get that product format to evolve to the modern day customer?
Perfect. Well, everyone, if you're loving this conversation, hit that like, tap that subscribe, and share it with a friend who side eyes greenwashing as much as we do. It helps us to bring more unfiltered industry stories, and you can have a much more enjoyable and truthful conversation. So, Sira, over to my next question. What personal experience or a turning point in your life that actually deeply influenced you, the way you approached your beauty or the product development as a founder? So, is there a moment, an incident that actually triggered you? It's like, no, I need to find a different solution to what industry has to offer now.
Yeah, I mean, there were several moments that built up to this. I'd say I never set out to become a founder or to start a business. It was something that just happened organically during COVID. My partner and I decided we needed to do something different, and different meant, kind of changing the narrative and being disruptive, because we personally don't see the point in doing what others have done and just calling it something different. So it's about really, um, you know, being being disruptive. But the moments that led to this was I was fortunate enough with a lot of my roles previously to have traveled the globe, and I love traveling myself. So just experiencing firsthand these clogged waterways, the beaches, driving through the desert and seeing landfills in developing countries, and just also seeing the effects of climate change in my own country, in Cape Town, where there were water restrictions a few years ago, and people were forced to have 2-minute showers. And you'd think, how bizarre! Like, how can you face a drought in a city that's surrounded literally by two oceans, the Indian and the
Yeah.
Atlantic? Um, but drinking water isn't accessible to everyone. It's such a luxury. And there's so many things. And I've both Juan and myself, we're quite active in environmental activism. We Greenpeace volunteers. I'm also a Greenpeace speaker. So being in, I'd say, the thick of it, just seeing how climate change is affecting us as human beings and our planet, it just felt like I needed to do something more responsible. So just having those flashbacks, and it's almost like this mental collage of all of these images that I've seen, all of this information that I have, and all of that wonderful experience and knowledge that I have from the beauty industry over, the 20 years that I've been part of it. I just wanted to do something that was a nod not just to people and planet, but on a personal level to who we are as individuals. And so building out our framework, or that consideration framework that I mentioned earlier, was quite easy, because we care about so many different things, and there's so many things that we are not aligned with. So to map that out on paper just felt like a really good starting point. And we didn't have a name for the brand, we didn't have a product. We started off with that purpose, and then things developed from there.
Lovely. Well, that carefully and very well written way leads to my next question. The name Disruptor is quite bold and it's quite catchy. What does it mean? What does the word mean to you personally and in context of your journey? Why Disruptor London?
We get this question a lot, and I think as we are going through this journey, our answers tend to, evolve too. And
Yeah.
I think disruptor is definitely a rally cry. Personally, it's about refusing to accept the status quo and just refusing to accept that we need to do things because it's the way it's always been done.
Okay.
And for us, it's about pushing past that, being courageous enough to go against the current. When everybody's going in one direction, we kind of pause and think, is that the right thing to do? Maybe we go in a different direction. So it's pushing past that and just balancing the courage, a bit of creativity, and also a promise for our brand Disruptor London. It's a promise to just challenge those industry norms, confront the greenwashing head on, even if it makes you unpopular in a room full of people, and lead by radical example. We don't want to just exist, and we just don't want to kind of jump on a bandwagon because everybody else is doing. We're here to shake things up, and we want to do things our way. But hopefully this can be a blueprint, and not just following trends or everybody else.
Perfect. Well, your brand Disruptor London speaks to ethical sourcing and radical transparency. What has been the hardest part staying accountable to that promise?
The hardest part is saying no, even though it might be easier to compromise. Saying no to suppliers, to people that want to be associated with us, people that want to work for us. Saying no to partnerships because it's something that we don't feel quite aligned with. But overall, for us, it's about accountability. And being accountable means we have to go slower, or there's more cost associated with developing our products the way we want to. But we committed to doing things the way we want to and the right way. And I think it's worth it because what it's doing is it's also, these kind of intentional choices, it shapes the trust our community places in us.
Perfect. Well, consumers are waking up to greenwashing now. And how do you invite your customers or your audience the nuance of sustainability to how you translate to them or communicate to them, articulate what sustainability really means without overwhelming them? Because at the moment in the industry, in the internet, in the world of TikTok and Instagram, there are too many information and misinformation are floating around. There are people talking without explicitly talking the radical truth, and people are believing because they're getting influenced. So how do you create, like, remove the clutter, I would say?
Yeah, there's a lot of word salads out there where people just say a
Yes.
lot, but it means nothing. We want to turn complexity into empowerment, and we do that by being explicitly transparent about what goes into our products, why it goes into products, and how we do things. We don't overwhelm consumers or the community with jargon. We feel that there's enough brands doing that, but we want to make sustainability accessible. Firstly, by defining it and having those kind of third-party audits or validation for what we're doing, breaking down some of the processes, just sharing real data and our commitment to environmental causes. Like we donate a percentage of our sales to Clean Hub that helps prevent ocean-bound waste from getting into the water, and also 1% for the planet. So we are focused more on just staying in our lane, doing things our way, versus trying to just jump on every trend and the bandwagon that everybody else seems to be doing. And I feel that this kind of authenticity is sitting well with our customers. But of course, like everything, with communication, it's ongoing. Narrative, it doesn't stop. So we will need to look at ways that we can improve on that in the future.
No, I totally like agree with that. I think like everything that is here for long term and here for us to stay like or build, if you're trying to build a legacy, you have to take time and to develop it. Like we are in the generation of beauty that every brand needs to feels to grow at a super rapid end and like have like multiple rounds, multiple valuations, and like then investors exit, and like it's a very sharp curve rather than a sustainable curve. But I'm not sure if all those brands would exist 50 years down the line, because the legacy brands, it's like they're like years to for those legacy brands to reach the numbers in the revenue took years and like probably decades to reach there, and younger brands are going there much faster at like the high cost customer acquisition cost, and they're building it. But how many of those brands actually will sustain 100 years from now? How many would
Yeah.
be like remembered? So if you want to be remembered, if you want to build a legacy, you have to give it a slow sustainable growth. And like so is your sustainable approaches and your practices, because people moves at a different pace than the world moves, than the trend moves, because trends changes every quarter, literally. But
Yes.
if we launch product just on trends, people might take a longer time to even understand the trend. So staying true to the core is very important, and that's what
Hmm.
I like about your brand. So, what practice or an idea you tried? And like we all talk about success stories, we do not talk enough of our failures, but our failures are the one who gives us the highest amount of learnings. You actually find your strength in your lonely days. So, what practice and idea that you tried in your journey that didn't work, but you thought it would, and it that like finding actually has surprised you, especially on your mission towards a climate positive beauty? So, what one idea, if you're allowed to share with the audience, that you thought it would work, but it didn't?
So earlier on, we never set out with the intention of just having solid formats. We had, so many different product formats and stories that we wanted to share with our consumers. And one of the bottlenecks was always finding more responsible packaging solutions. So we explored compostable packaging. That in itself, took us down several rabbit holes, because not all compostable packaging means it's home compostable. It could be
Yes.
industrially compostable. And I don't want to harp on about the recycling infrastructure, but compostable plastics cannot be recycled nationwide in the
Yeah.
UK. And we aren't as developed as some of the other countries when it comes to this. So we were accepted into a hardware accelerator where we develop prototypes for different packaging formats, for liquids, for powders, balms, etc. That was monomaterial using compostable raw materials. And we were very pleased with the design, the aesthetic, but we were confronted with the harsh reality that as lovely as this looks, and it would be a very big investment that would require external investors, as well as it's not going to really be it's not going to be effective enough in this environment that we're living in the UK, right? So
Okay.
it's a great idea, but it doesn't fit into the whole recycling infrastructure the way we would love for it to do. So that, creates more complexity in terms of what do we do to ensure responsible end of life. That would mean collection of that. It just adds more to the carbon footprint. So those were things that, once while we had some great ideas and great design teams working with us on this project, and we developed a final product, it's something that just didn't make sense um, for firstly the stage of our business, because we're not that mature and we don't have the bandwidth to influence some of the big giants. And we had to make some trade-offs. And we decided to launch our brand with just the solid formats. And we felt that that was a great way of reinforcing what our mission was. And we got a lot of attention on the back of that. So uh, I'd say in summary, there's so many great things that we can think of and dream up and even develop when you're sitting in a closed
Yeah.
room with very smart and creative people. But does that fit into the whole framework when we're trying to be more ethical, more responsible, and shift a change in behavior?
Perfect. Now I'm going to ask you a very tough question. And like what you just mentioned is, I have seen that firsthand in my careers as well, because and ideas can be great, but not all great ideas are executionable. So, but until you can execute it to the people that you want to impact, to the countries, if the infrastructure, the country infrastructure or the local infrastructure is not adaptive to the great idea, then you're just ahead of time and you still
Hmm.
fail. So like timing and pacing to like your surrounding is equally important, being very innovative. And sometimes you just have to wait. It's like it's a great idea. It's like I remember it's like I was trying to work on a shampoo concentrate, and we were looking into packaging which are compostable packaging, but
Hmm.
the liner of the material, and it's a paper material, it's an outer paper material, which is a brilliant, and we loved it. It even worked at our cogs, but because of the nature of the formula, the it didn't had the layers inside, and it's okay at the time of feeling, but 3 months down the line, which is a real case, once you've done your production, it will stay at a warehouse for a shorter or longer period of time, or at retailer shelf or at your DTC warehouse. So the formula is actually reacting with the packaging material, because although the outer material is recyclable, compostable, great, but it doesn't work with a semi-solid liquid formula. So a great idea, but it didn't have an execution, because no product, until you're like doing like a handmade pop-up show, if you have a formula and a packaging and it's not compatible enough to stay in the warehouse, you still cannot launch with it. And the project failed midway through. So we just realized we were like a little ahead of the curve. But he was so excited because it was like
Yeah.
groundbreaking. And like we wanted to be, yes, we will be industries first, because we are bringing this concept to the market. The product, the packaging, great. Formula, great. Packaging plus formula together was not that great.
Yeah.
So that definitely happens. So I can like totally relate to the story you just said. Well, you specialize in solid formats. So as a cosmetic scientist, I'm a formula person. So I'm going to ask you, a lot of bioactives and a lot of raw materials are water soluble or oil soluble. So you have chosen solid format, which are great for sustainability, but they limit certain actives, they limit certain raw materials. What are the trade offs that you face while formulating everything for solid form?
Um, there's not that many trade-offs, to be honest, because formulating for solid, but also formulating for multi-use requires reimagining existing or, just other formats that have existed for a long time. So for us, it was just going back to the drawing board and starting from scratch, rethinking formulas, but also ensuring that you can be innovative enough to stabilize certain actives and ingredients without the water. A lot of them can be oil soluble. Um, because a bunch of the ingredients that we're using in our formats are oils and butters. But I'd say the the biggest trade-off would be looking at some trendy ingredients. If everybody's jumping on a cherry bandwagon,
Yeah.
and cherry's not compatible with the formula, then, we just need to pass on that one.
Okay.
That would be something, but I wouldn't say it affects us deeply, because ultimately we don't really want to compromise on efficacy. So if it means having fewer products, where we can choose our results over trend, then we'll do so. But just staying true to our mission of, the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, we cannot have a SKU count of 200 just to be a trendy brand. We need to have fewer products that's going to work hard and doing it in a responsible way.
Perfect. For the consumers and the listeners out there, SDG 12 actually refers to Sustainable Development Goal. Responsible consumption and production, one of the 17 UN Sustainable Developmental Goals that was adopted in 2015 as a part of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Its main aim is to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, meaning we should do more with less, reducing resource use, waste, and pollution while improving quality of life. I hope it helps to understand what SDG 12. Now, I'm going to ask you a very tough question. Many brands, and like I literally tell it with like holding a hand in my heart, many brands actually name check SDG 12 when they're writing their sustainability mission. But how does or how it has personally shaped the way you think about your brand growth, your responsibility, and the kind of business you want to build?
So I wouldn't say we name check at all. For us, it's a North Star. It was born from that initial, piece of paper that was our consideration framework. When we were defining sustainability for our brand, it was about consuming less because overconsumption is one of the key factors that's killing our planet. So how do we, tackle that head on? It's by doing more with less. So we develop, and that's where the reimagining or re-engineering of formulas had to come in, where, you know, having a solid is good, it's not good enough. Having a solid that just conditions your hair or for shaving or for a body wash is not good enough. We needed to really reinvent this, re-engineer it so it can be compatible for your hair, your skin, your beard, your body, for shaving and all of that good stuff. And it's a product that fits into your life and it's a practical solution versus us having to have several products that, you know, we need to kind of jump around, where we're living in a time where we lead active lives. We travel a lot. We go to the gym, or we might go out for a weekend away, and we don't want to be carrying just loads of different products. So we want to develop a product that fits into our lifestyle, but also tackles the responsible consumption head on, and doing it in a way where it can also be produced responsibly, where we're reducing our carbon, we're reducing the amount of water that we're using, we do low intervention manufacturing. So there's so much there that I can go on about, but overall, the SDG 12 was our North Star, and
Yeah.
it means, it's more about slow kind of way of doing things, and not just about the profit and the scaling.
Perfect. And that is like, I am so happy that you actually explained it so well. And I don't have to add at all anything. I think it's very clear to the audience. So, all the listeners out there, you are listening to Inky with Rinki, and we are doing a Beyond the Boardroom series with Sira Naidu, co founder Disruptor London. Hope you are enjoying the conversation as much as we are doing. Off to my next question. When you make formulation cheese, because we live in the world of a revolving regulatory landscape, ingredients get banned, there are more fragrance allergens that need to be declared. It's constant shifting, especially if you're trying to build a global brand. US changes something, there is a new FDA regulation, then European Union changes something. And if you're in Asia, that's a whole different animal all it together. So in that changing landscape, when you have a hero SKU or a popular SKU and you have to make a formulation changes, how does the efficacy and sustainability balance come into play? And how do you communicate to your existing customer without creating a mistrust or a confusion? How do you handle it? Because the job is tougher than a regular format.
Absolutely. I think, living within the UK, we comply with EU guidelines, and EU is probably one of the strictest globally.
Yes.
So we're already within a filter of a filter. Fortunately, and of course, for us being a brand where we pride ourselves in organic, natural, vegan ingredients, that's non-toxic, etc. We're within another filter within that ecosystem. So we haven't really had to change our formulas since we launched. However, we will probably look at improving things based on new biomaterials that
Yes.
or bioactives that will be available in the future. We're always keeping our eyes and ears close to what's going on. But if we were to cross that bridge, we'd firstly need to explain to our community as to why, and share with them why we're doing what we're doing, the decision behind this change, and gather feedback and information from them, because we're creating products for our customers and our community, so we need to ask them if what are they looking for from their product, whether it it might be efficacy or just an aesthetic, and keep that dialogue going there.
Perfect. Well, that leads perfectly to my next question. So, we live in a constant world of operational changes, lead time, material shortage, things getting stuck at the port. Those are real life issues of the world of product development. What has been the most unexpected operational challenge building this value led supply chain that no one actually warned you about?
Um, there's so much. I'd say the one that stands out, of course, with climate change, we're seeing direct impact in raw material sourcing and the cost of goods going up exponentially, and we've had to absorb a lot of that. But I'd say
Yes.
one of the bigger challenges that nobody really talks about, or it's not common to talk about, is that invisible labor, where it's the cross-checking, the tracing, when it comes to ingredient sourcing,
Oh,
the
yes. Nobody
traceability.
understands how detailed it
Yes.
can be. Like, I have done material theo planning in my career. And, like,
Yeah.
if you are like doing, like, okay, I want 1,4-dioxane free, it's like how much documentation and paperwork you need to have in your dossier in terms of
Yes.
ensure trace materials. Please explain it for the audiences.
Yeah.
Like, what does invisible labor means?
Invisible labor is, the due diligence that we need to do to ensure that we are being responsible and ethical and transparent about the ingredients that we're using, the raw materials we're using, and just that whole provenance piece. And that can be laborious. It's definitely time consuming. And it's also a great way of filtering, your suppliers. If they cannot provide the documentation that you require for traceability, then you need to say no to them and you move on and look for somebody that can provide you with the kind of transparency and all the documentation that you need. But it's made us better, and I think it's also in the last couple of years of doing this, it's helped us um, move faster and ask the right kind of questions without, having to um, I'd say be a bit too vague and too polite about things with suppliers.
Yeah, I have been fortunate, and like I actually honestly I have seen like a mix of it. So sometime even very small players in terms of the raw material industry, I'm talking for the cosmetic raw material industry, sometime even small players have great amount of documentation. Like their details is to the core, and some of the really big names in the industry does not always have the question, like all the questions answered, but I have always found a way to navigate because these discussions are beyond your sales and purchase order and the sales team and the account management team. You have to talk to the R&D or the sustainability team of that ingredient supplier to going up to the different levels, which takes time and elongates your invisible labor. As you say, it is very time consuming, and I'm glad that you
Yeah.
bought that because it takes literally like an army amount of time to do this, just from the
Yes.
documentation gathering and like having the proof in a folder, just to, if somebody challenges you, somebody asks a question, you're not answering for the matter of answering, you're answering with authenticity and a validated backed claim. So I'm really really
Yes.
glad that you're doing that because I know how much time it takes. Like it pains, but it does take time for sure. Well, like my one of my like very final question, we are like almost going towards the end. So, is there any common misconception of the eco-conscious personal care that you would like to clarify? What people think, but it's actually a myth, not true?
Um, I think we've come quite a long way, and eco isn't new. It's not like trendy anymore. It's just something that, consumers are aware of. But one of the misconceptions would be maybe it's less luxurious or less effective. In reality, it's our formulations have proven that it's a lot more concentrated, high performing, and it's also respectful to the planet. So we challenge that kind of myth that eco is a compromise. It's, if anything, we see it more as an upgrade.
Perfect. Well, fast forward 5 years, 5 years down the line, what would success would mean to Disruptor London beyond numbers?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd say success is really, it means changing culture and changing behavior. It's also seeing other standards, the standards overall being raised. So are the brands, you know, living up to those higher standards? Because customers are demanding more transparency, right? And that should be a minimum. So, sustainable beauty shouldn't be a niche, it should be the norm. And
Well
I
said.
think like the true legacy will be in seeing a shift in consumer behavior sparked across the industry.
Perfect. Finally, if your brand could only leave one legacy in the next 100 years, one mindset, one practice, or one belief, what it would be?
Ooh, another tough one. I'd say, I hope we can leave behind a blueprint or a model of how we can do business with a conscience and be effective. And impact is the default measure of success, right? So proving that real change starts when we refuse to settle and invite everyone to do the same.
Perfect. Well, Sira, thank you so much for showing us that disruption is not about breaking things for the matter of breaking it. It's about rebuilding them in a way that works for the people and planet. Disruptor London on its own is a proof that change doesn't happen overnight, but with persistence, it does happen. To all my listeners in the beauty industry who does not need another empty promise, it needs more people, brands, and customers willing to demand better. Because in beauty, disruption isn't just a trend, it's the only way forward. So until next time, I am Rinki, and this is INCI with Rinki podcast. And today we were doing a deep dive discussion with Sira Naidu, co-founder Disruptor London, and we discussed all the truths behind the beauty. Stay curious, stay conscious, and always read those ingredient list. Thank you for joining for today's wonderful discussion. Hopefully, you have enjoyed to the best like we both have. See you next time. Bye.